Hi, how are you? This is Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, and today on the Mindfully Integrative Show, we have Johnathan Mcleron. So he is an amazing individual, a coach, and a he's done many things, nutritionist and father, new father, and I guess I would call it an integrative father instead of integrative mama. But he has an array of things to discuss with you, to talk to you about your health and where he's come in his story and how long it has been and what he's done to make his life and for him and his family. So thank you so much, Johnathan, for being on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Of course. So let's dive in and kind of like check in and say, what was something that people don't know about you?
Um, that I'd learned how to speak four other languages.
That's amazing. I wish I
Yeah,
knew. I only know two, Spanish and English.
yeah, I did. Now, don't ask me to converse in them anymore because it's.
Mm.
So I lived in Mexico for about 6 months, and so I lived in Guadalajara, and that allowed me to become fluent. I kind of had a bit of a background in Spanish because I had a bit of an interest in it because I wanted to travel to South America. And I know Mexico is North America still, but we never did actually make it to South America. But so I learned to speak it there because you just hear it every day, and I wasn't living in a tourist area. I was just living in like Centro Histórico, where it's all Spanish down there. And then I spent 3 summers living in Italy, so I learned to speak Italian. I spent a year living in Poland, and so I learned to speak Polish as well. And being from Canada, we learned to speak French as well. Not that we're bilingual, most people, but I also spent time living in Quebec City, so learned the Quebecois French as well.
Wow. You are currently in Canada right now?
I am so just
Okay.
north of Montana for U.S. listeners. If you drive six
Oh,
hours in a straight
Montana.
line,
Oh,
you'll hit
cool.
my
Very cool.
city called Red Deer.
Red Deer. Oh, wow. Is it getting cold there now?
A little bit. We're still hitting in Celsius like 22 degrees, so I don't know if that's like high 60s, early 70s kind of
Oh,
thing.
so still kind
Um,
of nice.
But we live near the Rocky Mountains, and so weather can be really unpredictable. You can get a hot wind off the mountains. We call it a Chinook, and that can raise temperatures like up to 20 degrees. Let's say if you're at freezing temperatures and all of a sudden you're at like, again, 20 degrees higher in terms of Celsius. But the flip side is you can get a really cold wind blow off the mountains in the middle of the summer, and you might see flurries. They don't stick around, but we've had snow in August before just because a cold wind blast off the mountains. So it's kind of an interesting place to be.
That sounds cool. I mean, I like it's so funny because I used to think I always want it warm, but I don't know. Now I don't mind a little nice cold. I don't love the snow, but I'm getting more and more used to it.
I do have a cold shower every day as well. So I guess I call it resilience training. So being willing to be uncomfortable, because I think if we want to grow and change, that we have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And so that's just kind of my little resilience test every day.
Oh, that's part of your morning ritual, morning motivation.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I
Oh, we'll
just
have to try that.
I just turn it straight cold and just step in. I take a deep breath, step in.
Whoa.
Yeah, might as well. It's a good wake up. I don't require coffee, and then it's you kind of get used to it, and a hot shower feels a bit weird now.
That's so funny. Oh, wow. How interesting. And yeah, you're kind of like rearing up for the day.
Yeah, basically that's the
There
idea.
there has been some research, or actually there's research that the ice cold water will rev up your metabolism.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I like is that it can potentially activate brown fat, particularly in your back. So
Hmm.
adults still have some brown fat cells. We don't have a lot. Babies have a lot more of it, of course, because they can't really
They
shiver, and
do.
so um, yeah. So a lot of the cold water is blasting my back. So I mean, I don't know how much it's going to rev up your metabolism. Maybe a little bit because it's got to
Maybe a
warm you
little.
up again afterwards.
You never know.
Um, but you'd think like 10 minutes starts to feel long, but after about 2 minutes in there, I just kind of get used to it. The other part of it is I have a couple of hip issues from a few motorcycle accidents, and so usually I'll have my cold shower right after I do a ride on my recumbent bike, and so it kind of helps with recovery. So it's kind of like hot cold kind of thing. So
Yeah, yeah.
it gets warmed up and mobilized in the morning. Then I put some cold onto it, and then step out into the warm room, and yeah. So there's a little method to the madness.
Love it. No, that's really great. I mean, that's a nice therapeutic contrast there. I
Yeah.
think that sounds super effective. So let's talk about, your story and, how you're kind of in this traditional integrative path. And, I know that you're a freedom coach and a nutritionist, but how exactly did you end up where you are now? What exactly kind of transitioned you to this kind of path? And Tell
Well,
us a little bit about that.
yeah, I'll give it to you in a coconut-sized nutshell. How about that?
Okay, yeah, I mean,
So,
we have a few, it's a little small show, but like you can, get dive into at least the parts that we can kind
yeah,
of
so
dive in, and then they can reach out to you more.
yeah, so I mean, I was an athlete in my 20s. Primarily played basketball, volleyball, rollerbladed everywhere, that kind of thing. My wife and I spent 3 years traveling around the world, and partway through that time, I was attacked while living in South Africa and nearly beaten to death. And so that was,
Oh my gosh. Wow.
yeah, that was a really traumatic experience to go through, and nothing really prepares you for that. And so, as a result of that, the trauma, I started to eat a lot. So rather than turning to, say, drugs or alcohol to cope, I turned to food as my coping mechanism, and I became a binge eating food addict. And that's a really difficult pattern to break. And so I went and tried many, many different diets, because once I gained a lot of weight, gained over 100 pounds, it's a lot harder to lose it. And so I tried many, many different diets and ways of eating and so on. But it wasn't really until I started to address the elephant in the room, and that was my relationship to myself and my relationship to food and my relationship to my body, that I began to see the permanent shifts starting to happen. Um, uh, when I struggled with weight loss, I started to become very angry at my body, very spiteful towards it, because it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. I remembered what it was like to be an athlete, and so it really took another coach working with me on self-love and self-compassion, to sort of really effectively go down that healing journey that I needed to go down.
That sounds like yes, you're right. In a nutshell, there's definitely a lot there that you
There is,
could
yeah,
probably discuss with us, because there's a few elements in that, just in that conversation alone. Trauma, then you're
yeah,
talking about your body image, and then you're
yeah.
talking about how you're healing through that. So that in itself, you must have obviously figured out that there was not one pill or one therapist that
No,
could get you to where you needed to be.
no, a lot of help. And to anyone who might be struggling, it's like, don't ever try to solve this yourself. There's no medal for martyrs, I like to say.
Mhm.
Um, there's not a sign of weakness to get help. It's actually a sign of intelligence. Um, Human beings are wired to learn and connect, from other human beings, and there's this real power in that, rather than struggling alone in isolation.
I think no, I appreciate that you're saying that you went and got help, and that you're also saying that well, there was probably many elements that got you healthier, not just your therapy. I mean, you had to lose weight, so
Yeah,
you were physically working on yourself, mentally working on yourself. You looked at a whole health perspective on it. Um,
yeah.
what got you to where you are now? Because you work and talk to people about nutrition. You're also a coach. You're
Hmm.
evolved into many different aspects of this. How can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I like to say that nutrition is the cover story. So people come
Okay.
to me and, they're looking for help with weight loss, usually. But I say weight loss is also the symptom, or sorry, carrying excess weight is usually the symptom. And so I meet people where they're at. They say they'd like to lose weight, but ultimately, if we start working together, we're going to look at other things, because a lot of people, again, because they're stressed and overwhelmed, we live in a very, like, not physically stressful life at all. We can accomplish everything, almost everything, from a push of a button on a smartphone. Um, but we live probably in a very emotionally and mentally distressing world, because we have access to being triggered, hundreds of times a day, 24 hours a day, with digital media algorithms that push the most emotive content to the top, designed to trigger us and to hold our attention. And so, because of that, there's this really interesting paradox we find ourselves trapped in, where we're really can be really quite emotionally distressed, but we're not physically stressed at all. And so that leads us to being very sedentary, and we've created like the perfect world for creating stressed out, overweight people. And so I really want to look at the whole human being, rather than just, you should eat more vegetables. And it's like, let's consult, let's factor in a variety of different pieces to the puzzle to help you understand why you're where you're at. And it's not because you're a failed human being. It's because, and so I like to focus on what I call brain driven weight loss. It's like, let's understand the brain is the driver of behavior. So we look at, psychology, mindset, emotional health, mental health, our habits, and sort of integrate all those pieces together to say, let's reverse engineer a healthier lifestyle for you. But by doing the work through, with your brain as well, we're able to create results that stick, because you ultimately, if you want to maintain your health, you have to create a new way of living. You can't just temporarily change your habits and hope that that's going to create permanent results.
I completely agree. I also, I mean, I agree in the sense of like the pattern and the behavior, and to change to change that pattern, people at your first they have to identify they have a problem. So they're coming to
Yeah.
you, but they may not even realize what their problem is. I
Hmm.
mean, do you find that they come out with one thing and then realize there's so much more involved there?
Yeah. That's why I say I meet people where they're at. They very often think, I just want to lose weight, and if I lose weight, I'll be happy. And that's a big old myth.
Yeah,
That's not to say that, look, weight loss, I like to say weight loss is a doorway, it's not a destination.
yeah.
And the truth is, like, most people will benefit from losing some weight, from lowering their body fat percentage. That improves many biomarkers of health. But when we start to attach our sense of self-worth as a human being to a number on the scale, it becomes a really destructive path to go down. And so if we can understand that really it's not about a number on the scale, it's about creating a life that gives you the freedom to do what you want to do. I can tie my shoes. I can run up and down stairs. I can, uh, the things that people don't seem to think about, like I was morbidly obese, trying to wipe your bum. Like, just everyday life was harder when I was 100 pounds heavier. And no matter how much I tried to be the jolly fat guy, like inside, I was
Mhm.
like, this sucks carrying all this extra weight. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And, but I had to learn to love myself instead of hate myself where I was presently at before I could really truly make the change. It sounds maybe counterintuitive, especially for men, but it had to come from this place of love versus trying to punish myself into submission.
Mhm. Have you found that most of your clients are men? Do you work with a lot of men and women or just men?
Mostly women, actually.
Oh, mostly
Uh,
women. Okay.
and I would put a couple things into that, like, because I was puzzled by this as well in one sense. But women are more likely to put up their hands and ask for help. They seem to be a little bit more open to acknowledging that they have struggles.
Women,
Um,
yeah, we're always like, oh, wait, I need a minute.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we
Whereas
do.
in masculine culture, like, asking for help is very often seen as a sign of weakness or vulnerability. And
Mm-hmm.
that'd be a whole other topic, really. But because I'm very much an advocate for what I call positive masculinity and healthy masculine behavior, because I don't like the term toxic masculinity, though I know why it exists. And
Oh
so,
my God, that'd be a whole other conversation you
yeah,
can
I
have just
know.
talking about positive masculinity because I feel like that's giving hugs is okay.
Oh man, I'm a
Saying,
hugger. Like,
yeah,
I'm an
I'm just
empath.
saying that as one aspect, but yeah, that
Yeah,
go on,
yeah.
go on.
Well, I think, of course, about my son. I have a son who's 6 months old, and I want him to grow up seeing a healthy model of masculinity, one where I love my wife, I respect her, I treat her, I shower him with affection, so he knows that affection, male affection is healthy and normal, um, and but also, you know, like, male strength is a good thing too. Sometimes we look at that like it's a problem, but it's like, no, male strength directed in the right way or masculine strength is a really good thing. Can be a
Right.
really beneficial thing, but it just needs to be channeled in the right direction. And I think we just, with men, we don't see, we were given like Homer Simpson and Rambo kind of thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
w- w-
There wasn't as much of a what's it called, their images
kind
are weren't as
yeah,
good.
kind of like the nuance. There wasn't much nuance. It was like you were a fat beer drinking doofus who everybody loved because you were a lovable failure, or you're a hyper masculine like superhero, and there wasn't really a lot in between there. And it's like
Mm,
most of us are going to occupy the space somewhere in between those two.
right. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, just in that alone, we can have that, more in depth conversation.
Yeah.
But I know that you have done so much for your clients in this nutritional aspect and their overall, I guess, for females, we call it the body love imaging and
Mhm.
better imaging of oneself. Um, how has that been for you with you and your clients, and where has that grown for you? Like, what do you, if you like to share on a story, and then where have you gone with that?
Yeah. Well, I say, if we really want to transform our health and our life and our body and so on, we need to understand where we're starting. And sometimes that's going to be an uncomfortable, in fact, almost all the time, it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation to acknowledge where we're presently at. But so my goal as a coach is to create a compassionate space. So compassion is sometimes misunderstood because it's not really, like I say, it's not a get out of jail free card, but it's a space where we can bear our struggles in the light, and we're not going to be judged for it. But and it's in this space that we can actually start to create change. And it sounds, sometimes when I say it, I'm like, it sounds kind of esoteric, but it's like you just create this human connection where it's like you can tell me what's happened in your week, and we're gonna understand it. We're gonna look to uncover it. I say, open the box, take a look inside, see what happened, and because all behavior makes sense. It doesn't mean all behavior is good or helpful, but it makes sense. And so when we start from that perspective that like you're doing the best you can with the tools you have, we might just need to change the tools you have. And some of it, and of course, sense of identity and self as well, right? That there's a whole other rabbit hole to go down too, right? We act in congruence with our sense of identity, and our sense of identity sometimes doesn't make logical sense because it was maybe imprinted on us at a very early age. But that's why we see behaviors like self-sabotage. The attempt to change is very often not acting in congruence with our present sense of identity, and so creating
That's an
space.
amazing point. Wow.
Yeah.
People's previous history and what they previously perceived of themselves may be keeping them stuck or
Hmm.
in this pattern. I
Yeah,
always
the
have to talk a
beliefs they
lot
hold about
about
themselves.
patterns, but yes, their previous self is not who they are now or who they can
Yeah.
become.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Would you like to share a little bit about a specific or a client or even for yourself how
Yeah.
it's kind of changed for you?
Well, what's really neat is, I often highlight one of my clients, my favorite client. She's been with me for a couple of years now. Her name is Rhonda, and she'd be about 61 years old now.
And she's
And she
okay
came,
with you sharing?
yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. She's featured on my website.
Okay, great.
Yeah, she came to me at about 59 and about 50 odd pounds overweight, and she's about 5 feet tall. So, um,
That adds a
many,
lot and shorter. Yeah, that must
yeah,
have been a lot for
ma-
her.
many years of failed yo-yo dieting, struggling with her weight, and so on. And really, kind of just I'm getting old, and feeling hopeless, and being in pain, walking across the room, and just just a really really difficult day-to-day existence. And over the course of about 9 months, she lost about 50 pounds, and she's now able to walk 5 miles a day and swim 30 laps at her pool at 61.
That's
And
awesome.
just seeing this shift, and that's not to say she doesn't have her struggles. She certainly still does. And I think sometimes there's this idea that once the major piece of the transformation is accomplished, that you're now on easy street. I'm like, no, real life doesn't stop. Like we're still gonna. But what it is she navigates the difficulties of life differently. She doesn't turn to food so much to deal with her stress. There are other ways that she navigates that, and so is really really that's really gratifying to see. That's why I love what I do, is like when when I see that kind of change being accomplished, it's like it feels really meaningful and impactful. And I think she's particularly inspiring because at 60 you'd think like, oh my gosh, I'm over the hill, and she's proving that you're not.
That's so she's also kind of saying that she didn't give up on, the age of where she's at. She kind of, oh, just because I'm achy or things
Yeah.
aren't moving the way it is, she took the initiative to change. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty monumental because I feel like sometimes people do give up. I mean, they give up, there's always some sort of excuse of sorts.
Yeah.
Um, and did you find it challenging for not just her or other patients, but to help them maintain or be sustainable or that for let me rephrase that, or for them to understand sustainability? When I talk about people, it's like the
Yeah.
lifestyle, and I say no, this is a lifestyle conversation, not a quick fix.
Well, I will say that weight maintenance is a challenge. And I say this, I call myself SLIM, but it's SLWM, a successful long term weight manager. You see, I call fat cells the gift that keeps on giving. Once your body makes a fat cell, it's always there, waiting to be filled. And so if I eat like an undisciplined toddler, those fat cells will fill up really fast. That's great biologically speaking because it's a famine security mechanism, but we live in a feast world now. And so, kind of understanding that we're always going to have to be mindful in one way or another about what we put into our body. Um, like, there's not an end point to this, can be challenging. But the way that I work with people is we kind of reverse engineer a healthy lifestyle piece by piece, kind of habit by habit, behavior by behavior. And so that it's not imposing a whole bunch of rules overnight, but we put one piece in place, make sure it's secure, then we put the next piece in place, make sure it's secure, and so on. And in doing that, it doesn't feel nearly so overwhelming. So by the time we get to the end of, I have a program called Lifestyle 180. It's a 180-day program, and that's exactly what we're doing. Is we're building, reverse engineering people's healthy lifestyles piece by piece. And so rather than introducing overwhelming change overnight, we introduce subtle changes and just keep building on them and building on them. And then there's this cumulative effect where it's much more likely to stick because we put that time into it.
180 days sounds like a lot, but it sounds like if people
It
put the
goes by
effort and
fast.
time, it goes
It
by fast.
it blows my mind how fast it goes, because it does sound like a lot, but hey, if you want to live 10, 20, 30, 40 more years, like what is 6 months? It's like it's going to come anyways.
And well, your clients that take that, you try to get them to be serious about what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
And you see, it's not like working with a coach isn't actually like this perfect linear journey, where we lose 2 pounds a week or something like that. It's like
yeah.
there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be good weeks and there's going to be bad weeks. There's going to be weeks where you're on cloud nine and weeks when you're in the pit of despair. It's just, but it's. So I like the analogy. I call it the tunnel of sewage, actually.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So
Explain that.
this is my analogy for a transformation journey. And so, what we people would like is, I show up and we got a couple of unicorns and we're going to climb the rainbow bridge into the clouds and we're going to walk across the clouds to this new destination and it's going to be easy and effortless and life's going to be perfect. But in real life, it's not like that. It's messy and it's dirty and it's dark and it's a struggle. And so, real transformation is you're standing in front of this tunnel and it's filled with waist deep sewage. But you're ready for change. You're mentally in that place where you're like, okay, I'm going to embark on this journey. So you got your hip waders on and you're going to wade through. And the other side of this tunnel is, $10 million. But it's not a straight tunnel, so you can't actually see the end of it. I come along with a couple of kayaks and say, hey, it looks like you're getting set to go through the tunnel of sewage. I'm going to go with you on this journey. It's going to stink. It's going to be dark. I did bring headlamps, so I can always illuminate our present condition and kind of a little bit ahead, the road ahead. But you got to row your own kayak. Like I can't row it for you. And at the end of it, we disembark and you're on your way and I go on and help the next person. So I'm like a tunnel of sewage tour guide kind of. Um, yeah. But
That's a really great analogy. Have you found people? Well, I mean, obviously you have maintenance, but you have an array of clients. But I love the way that they kind of you're rowing them, you're empowering them to row their own kayak. They're getting
that
them
is,
into the right direction. Because instead
it's
of
super
thinking, "Oh,
important.
I'm the one that's going to do it for you," no.
Yeah. And it's really, so very often people are overwhelmed by the time they come to me
I
and
bet.
just tell me what to do and I'll do it. That's the overwhelmed response. That's very disempowering. So rather than that, what I do is I say, like, I'm your tour guide. I'm not your Sherpa. In other words, I'm not carrying your backpack for you because I can't. And that would be that disrespects your autonomy and individuality. So instead, I say, let's pick this one principle, and here's a starting point for you. I want you to try to implement this into your life, but over the next 2 weeks, as we try to build this into your life, you're going to shape this to suit how it works for you. Because like the fundamental principles of being healthy are not overly complex, right? It's quality nutrition, quality sleep, stress management, regular activity, hydration. But how do we take that principle and shape it in such a way that it works for you and your individual life? So when I work with somebody, I say it's like two experts collaborating. So I'm not a dictator. I'm an expert in nutrition and psychology, but you're an expert in your life and your own life experience. We need both sets of expertise to successfully accomplish this transformation. And so I'm going to definitely empower people to have an active hand in the transformation, because when we're finished working together, I don't want them to collapse because I was the one holding them up. I want them to stand on their own 2 feet and feel strong and empowered. And so I like to say that my hope is to create referral business, not repeat business. I want to do such a good job working with people that you can't help but tell other people about it.
Word of mouth is monumental, and then that authenticity of yourself. I mean, I can just see it when we spoke even before the conversation, who you are, and trying to make a difference. You're trying to make a difference for your clients, for yourself, and without having it to just be like, okay, you're referring me because I'm doing the job that you need and I'm helping you get to the goals, or to the to the not
Yeah,
necessarily destination, but to one part of the equation, right?
absolutely.
um
Yeah.
so This is an amazing conversation, and I appreciate you being on. Do you have anything that you would like to share, addition about what you're doing and how people can reach you, or just a little initial mindful tip, and then we can share how they can reach you?
Yeah, and so my mindful tip would be change starts with compassionate awareness. What I mean by that is because you might have heard the phrase awareness is the first step to change. That's only partially true. Sometimes when we become aware of our unhelpful behaviors, we start to judge ourselves and we start to treat ourselves worse and we start to retreat and try to bury our head in the sand. So when we include the compassion piece, we're now able to see ourselves as we are in a present condition, and not use that as ammunition to beat ourselves up. So, but if we want to change, we have to become, a lot of our behaviors are automatic and they're habitual and they're driven by something other than our conscious awareness. And so if we can, let's say, for example, I'll have people make a food journal. And the act of taking a photo of your food means you're now going to eat that food with more conscious awareness than you were before. So now you're going to eat a little bit more mindfully. So that's why I say it's the compassionate awareness is the most powerful step in creating change.
I love that. I think that people don't have enough compassion in general, and then compassion
Yeah.
awareness in many other aspects. So that's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. In addition, how can we reach you, Jonathan? How can we
Yeah.
touch base with you? Because I know you have a number of businesses and you're a busy dad, but I want
Yeah.
those to listening and watching to be able to connect with you.
Yeah. Freedomnutritioncoach.com is my website. I also have a podcast called Wellness Unplugged, and I like to call it Between the Before and After. So maybe it's really a conversation with people who've overcome something, but we want to talk about, because in social media we just see the glamour, like the before and the after photo. We don't really dive into the journey in between, and that's kind of the things that I want to talk about to help people understand that it's normal to struggle, and what overcoming actually looks like versus the highlight reel that social media shows us. Um, and then maybe I could offer people a resource. I have one called Crush Your Cravings, and it's really to help people with things like emotional eating and boredom eating and whatnot. And so they can go to freedomnutrition.rocks/crush your cravings.
Love it. I can't wait. I'll have them in all the information in the show notes for those that are listening and watching. And I really appreciate you being on today. And thank you for your time and your effort.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the work that you do as well.
Oh, I really appreciate your time. So, those listening, thanks for joining in. And as I say to each one of you, make sure that you find a mindful way each and every day and have a little compassion awareness today and give yourself a little breath, a little minute. So, thanks again. And you guys have a wonderful day.